Good morning and welcome to another week of Subject to Finance on Monday the 11th. So this week I'll start off with what's going on in the banks. We've seen a few things happening. The one that I think is probably most topical is around rates, and I've mentioned for many weeks actually that things have been bouncing along and we've just been seeing little bits and pieces going on. But this last week's been a bit more interesting. In the last week we've seen longer term rates, so the sort of 3 to 5 year bucket change with small lifts across a lot of the banks, and particularly around that 3-year rate. The likes of Co-op, ASB and many of the others are actually starting to price a little bit more into that 3-year rate. I don't know if that's because they expect more people to be sort of locking in for 3 years, whether they've changed their sort of forecasting around that sort of longer term rate cycle and maybe it been a bit longer. We've talked about how long is it going to last, and it definitely feels when you talk to economists in the banks at the moment that it's going to last a little longer than they were expecting sort of 6 months ago. And so in the last week we've seen the banks shift that 3-year fixed rate up from around about the sort of mid to high sixes by 0.16% to 0.25%. So yeah, you're now seeing that 3-year rate at sort of 6.69 through to about 7.59 across the different banks. So that's one thing we're seeing. We're seeing turnaround times pushing out, so taking longer to get loan approvals back from banks. That's actually a positive sign. It means there's more activity going on, they're processing more, they're coming under more pressure. Not so great for clients, but as agents, it's good to know that the banks are seeing volumes going up, so it means you guys are actually selling stuff, doing stuff. So yeah, it's a market activity sign for us that things are actually getting a little bit better. I've talked a little bit about overseas buyers, and even with the sort of political stuff going on around overseas buyers and the potential for change there, we're actually seeing quite a bit of activity there. And yeah, we've just, in the last few weeks had approvals through our system for European buyers and Singaporean buyers, so I thought I'd just touch on that because it's not easy to do when it comes to getting the approval. Not all banks are in that market, and a lot of them just don't want to be there, especially if there's overseas income involved. But it is possible, and we are seeing results. So one, that there is a trend there. There are more buyers looking at New Zealand properties, the ones that qualify, and we are able to get finance for them. Something else just in the last quarter, I thought it was kind of interesting to see that around about 11% of loans written were for that first home buyer market, and it is actually a bit of an increase on what it's been in the past. So, but my thing there is, 11% means that there's a lot of other stuff being written out there. So whilst the first home buyers have been more active and have got back into the market, there's still a big number of other loans that fit outside that sort of first home basket, so that's next home and investors and the like. So still other activity going on. I want to talk about a subject that I've had questions about coming through off the back of these chats from agents, and that question is, how am I best to engage around that discussion when it comes to finance as an agent talking to either vendors or buyers, because they both often are doing things with finance at that stage. They could be buying their first home, buying their next home, but they could be trading up with the other vendor as well, or trading down, or whatever it might be. So finance is always sort of in the mix there somewhere. So I thought I'd sort of break it down from the advisor side as to how I see agents can add value in terms of having those discussions around finance with your clients. And I thought I'd start off with sort of just saying that we actually are very similar when it comes to the professional ethics that we have. So we have the same sorts of obligations. So if I'm dealing with clients, there's obviously a code of conduct that I have as a advisor and you have as an agent, and actually they kind of align. So your things that you'll have in yours, such as conflicts of interest and making sure that you're disclosing benefits and things like that, we have as well. So I thought I'd point that out up front. So if you are working with a broker and you're receiving a fee from them in any form, then you should be disclosing that to your clients. I just sort of throw that out up front because it really is important in this day and age that you're really transparent around those sort of conflicts of interest and benefits. But otherwise we're the same. So, and there is no problem you having a conversation at a very high level with a client around finance, in the same way that we would around, what we think in terms of things that might fit more into the agent world. It's not to say that we're specialists in that area and we're likely to refer on to someone that is, but having a high level conversation can add a lot of benefit. Just talking to agents, it feels like there's two types of agents when it comes to having that discussion around finance. There's the ones that are quite confident, don't pretend to know everything, but know that they can add value by connecting their clients to people that do have the ability to provide really good advice. And there's another group that seem to just want to avoid having the conversation. But I think there is real value in having it. And so when I was sort of thinking about how to approach this, I thought, well, maybe if we sort of look at what are the things that brokers like in terms of clients and dealing with clients coming from agents, and what are the things that agents like when dealing with mortgage brokers or advisors as they're otherwise known. So on the broker side, I thought it would be really good to just sort of discuss the timing piece, because that's huge when it comes to getting things right in terms of getting the finance sorted. Brokers typically don't like to work at the wrong end of things. They want to work at the right end of things. And what I mean by that is often with agents, the referral comes too late. It comes too far down the line. It comes when there's a problem or an issue, rather than right up the front when the client is just getting started on that journey of selling or buying the next home or whatever it might be. So timing is really important. The sooner the better. Getting that pre-approval and having a good, clear understanding around what that affordability is, so that by the time they're actually engaged by you and working to actually find that property, they're looking in the right places at the right type of property in terms of affordability. Being realistic around affordability, I know it's always kind of tempting to try and upsell, but there is only so far that banks can go on income, and so being really realistic is going to make that journey a lot better for everyone, really, because at the end of the day it's placing the client in the right place. And then I think there is certain information that advisors can talk to agents about, and there is certain information they can't. So just being a bit mindful with advisors, that advisors aren't able to tell you everything because they're not actually in a position of disclosing that sort of information to everyone. So, but they'll be as transparent as they can around you, and they'll tell you what they can tell you. So on the agent side, I've been talking to a few agents this week, and I think what agents really like is a nice clean process from start to end, and to get through to closing the sale without too much interruption and things not being hijacked. And things that are outside of their sphere of influence, stopping a transaction from happening is what they don't want, right? So having finance and all those sorts of things sorted is really essential, and not having last minute issues. And I think, so coming back from that, I think it sort of really reinforces the fact that the earlier that you get started with the client in terms of that conversation around finance, the better. Knowing that they've got pre-approval, knowing that there's nothing that's going to stop them with their lender, is really essential to you not spending a lot of time on something that's not the right thing for that client or not going to happen at all. Speaking to agents, I sort of asked the question, how do you approach the question of talking around finance? And I think, again, there's two kind of camps here. There's some that look at the fact that they are going to add value by introducing clients to people that can add value. that are confident in asking those questions around, are you pre-approved? Do you have finance sorted? What can you afford to buy? Would it be helpful for me to introduce you to a mortgage broker? And there's definitely a group out there that are very confident and relaxed in doing that and having that conversation. And then there are others that go, oh, that's not my area of expertise. I want to remain neutral when it comes to that conversation around finance, and tend to steer clear of that. I think there's some risks to doing that, and I think it doesn't necessarily mean the best outcome for the client to not have covered off those things well in advance. And I liken it to a conversation that mortgage brokers have to have, which is, have you got the right insurances in place? So I've given you a home loan, you've bought a house. Are you safe in terms of your risks around that? And I'm not an insurance broker, but I know that I'm doing the right thing to make sure the client's had the discussion and understands their risk and have mitigated those risks through insurance if they need them. So I kind of see it the same way. It's not an area of expertise. It's not an area where I'm actually licensed or regulated to provide advice. I'm just giving you a steer in the right direction in terms of something that could affect you. So that's how I look at it. That's it for me this week. I encourage you to talk to your clients around finance. The reason I do these podcasts is so you can keep up with what's going on in the industry from a banking point of view, so that you feel a bit more confident to talk about rates or other bits and pieces with clients. Not in terms of giving advice, but just understanding what's going on in the market. That's it for me. Have a great week and look forward to talking to you again next Monday morning. Cheers.